In this problem, we are going to solve a word problem by graphing, but on our calculator, not necessarily by actually drawing a graph itself. So you got to read carefully first off. It says you plan to work 200 hours this summer mowing lawns and babysitting. You need to make a total of $3,900. Babysitting pays $18 per hour and lawn mowing pays $24 per hour. How many hours should you work at each job to reach your goal? Write your system of equations, then utilize a graphing calculator. The fact that it says write your system of equations should be a spoiler, should be a hint of sorts that we're going to have multiple variables. In this case, we are going to have two. We should define them. I'm boring, and I use x and y. You can use whatever letters you want. It really doesn't matter. I just prefer an x and y for consistency's sake. The two things these are going to represent is the number of hours we're representing for each job. Since babysitting is mentioned first as a specific amount here, I'm going to say that x is hours spent babysitting. And as a result, y is hours spent lawn mowing. Since we get to define our own variables, if you have these variables flip-flopped, that is perfectly okay. Your equations will look slightly different, but it's going to give you the same information. So there are two things that we know right off the bat. We are working 200 hours. So when I add those two jobs together, the number of hours spent at each of them should equal 200. The other one that's harder to find, which takes a little bit of thinking, we need to make this much money and we're getting paid those amounts. That means I'm going to have $18 times every hour that I babysit, plus $24 times every hour that I mow lawn, and I want to make $3,900. Okay, that's my second equation. Now it says graph, basically. This is a miserable thing to graph. So what you're going to do is you're going to go to your graphing calculator, and you are going to utilize the y equals feature, top left button. When you press that, it opens up a whole list. This one right here, you are going to type in as y1, and this one you're going to type in as y2, but it's not quite that simple because y1 and y2 are set up as y1 equals and y2 equals, meaning I have to take these equations and put them in slope-intercept form. So this red one is actually y equals negative x plus 200. And this green one, well, it's going to be a couple steps. I'm going to have 24y equals negative 18x plus 3,900. Then I have to divide all of that by 24. So when I do negative 18 divided by 24, that simplifies down to 3/4, negative 3/4. But 3,900 divided by 24 simplifies down to 162.5, or as a fraction, which I prefer myself, plus 325 halves. So while the red equation is y1 and the green equation is y2, these are actually the things I'm typing in. There is no button for y. That's why we have to get y by itself. There's a button for x. You plug in negative, make sure you use negative and not the subtraction key. X, that's the button that's got x, t, theta, and n on it, right next to the blue button, plus 200 in y1, then scroll down, and then I'm putting fractions in parentheses, so I'm going to have negative 3/4 in fractions, or in parentheses, x plus 325 divided by 2. I'm also going to put that in parentheses just to make myself feel better. Then if I hit graph, I'm not going to see anything. Okay, I'm not going to see anything because my window defaults to a much smaller setting. It basically defaults to our normal negative 10 to positive 10 setting. So I'm going to hit zoom, and then you have multiple options. The one that I'm going to do is zoom 0. What that does is zoom fit. It tries to get everything in the picture as best as it possibly can. When I do that, it's going to give me a picture, and my picture does not look like those lines run into each other at all. Okay? that tells me my window is not quite exactly what I want it to be. Okay, so if I look at it right now, my window goes from -10 to +10 for the X direction. For the Y direction, it goes from 155 to 210. Then the scaling is by 1. Now, thinking logically for a second, we're counting number of hours. I can't spend negative hours babysitting, so I might as well just start that at 0. Okay, and I can't do anything more than 200 hours, so maybe I want to put that up to 200. Okay, my window is, this is a kind of guesstimation area. I'm right now putting it 0 to 200. But I don't want to count by ones. Maybe I want to count by tens. So X scale, I put as a 10. And I can do basically the same thing with my Y min and Y max. Because the number of hours is what X represents. The number of hours is what Y represents. The least it could be is 0. The biggest it could be is 200. And I go by 10. Now I hit the word graph. And I can actually see where these lines intersect. I don't know what that ordered pair is right now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit the second button. And then I'm going to hit calc, which is the button itself actually says trace, but calc is the blue lettering above it. Then I'm going to scroll down to option 5, which is intersect, and hit enter. That's going to bring a cursor up on my screen. So I'm on Y1 right now. It'll tell you that it's on Y1. If you're on a fancy new calculator, you might even have colored lines. I'm going to use the left and right arrow key to scroll that cursor to where I think it looks like there's an intersection. You just got to get pretty close, and then you hit enter. Then now it's going to jump the cursor to the other equation. You need to scroll that cursor to wherever you think there is the intersection. You just have to be close, and you're going to hit enter. And now, if your guesses are kind of far apart, you're going to have to kind of go one more time to guess. If your guesses were already really close, you just have to hit enter for a third time, and it will tell you the intersection as X equals 150, Y equals 50. That's what it's going to tell me at the bottom of the screen. So this means I need to work, or I need to babysit for 150 hours and mow lawns for 50 hours. When you're doing these and you write your sentence at the end, make sure you're carefully looking back at what you defined your variables as, because there's nothing that kind of gets more irritating for me than seeing people do all this complicated calculator stuff correctly, getting X equals 150, Y equals 50, and then swapping what they said their variables were. So that's why when you're done, look back at what you wrote here for what those variables should represent. Okay, 150 plus 50 does equal 200, so that red equation is definitely taken care of. If I do 18 parentheses 150 plus 24 parentheses 50 in my calculator and hit enter, it gives me 3,900. That tells me these are the correct numbers for X and Y. I just got to make sure my sentence matches those numbers. Have a great day, everybody.